TorahCafe.com.
Rabbi Yossi Horowitz is the author of the classic, the truly classic work, Shnei Luchot HaBrit, the Shal. Is considered one of the great Kabbalists in the post-Arizal era. His writings are filled with ideas from the Arizal. There's no question that the Arizal was a very prominent figure in his Kabbalah life, and he was a prolific writer of Kabbalah. He has a massive commentary on Siddur, which I believe he wrote himself, on the prayer book, where he explains virtually every passage of the prayer book according to his unique style of mysticism. But he's most famous for his work Shal, Shnei Luchos HaBrit, which was in effect a will and testament. He wrote it on behalf of his own family. And it's conceivable that he never intended it to become public. He never intended that it be published. People have all kinds of scary things to say, serious things to say about the consequence of the publishing of the Shal, the Shnei Luchos HaBrit by Rabbi Yossi Horowitz. People felt that it should not have been published. It certainly should not have been published in the way it was printed, because it was very sacred, very holy, and perhaps, if you will, too holy for the world. The Rabbi Yossi Horowitz lived in Europe. He was a rabbi in many communities. And near the end of his life, he moved on to the Holy Land, where I believe he passed away. And in his departure from his family and his former life, he left the work of the Shal as his testament, as his goodbye, as his will, if you will. It's an incredible work. It's very large. And it, in effect, is a commentary on every aspect of Judaism. You have extensive writings on each of the holidays, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, and so on, Shabbos. You have extensive writings on many of the customs of mitzvahs, davening, and so on. You also have quite a comprehensive commentary on the Chumash, on the Bible, on the Scripture. And then there's all kinds of very unusual discussions on areas of Torah which very few people have ever touched before. The role, the principles that govern how we interpret Talmud. He explores all of those, all kinds of different ideas. And he has a structure, has a design to his work that divides every section into three parts. He calls it Ner Mitzvah, V'Torah Er, V'Derech Chaim. Ner Mitzvah, the candle of Mitzvah. Torah Er, the light of the Torah. V'Derech Chaim, and the way of life. And the way these three sections work is that Ner Mitzvah is usually a shorter part of his work, in which he will address the ritual part. Any area of Judaism and Torah he's speaking about, in the section called Ner Mitzvah, he will interpret the customs and the mitzvot related to that part of Jewish life. Torah Eid is the most elaborate, the most comprehensive part of his work, and it's Kabbalah, it's mysticism. And he has a very original and a very lucid and a very wonderful, direct, forward way of explaining many, many wonderful ideas in Kabbalah. Derech Chaim is simple Musar. It's simply giving you instruction, it's simply giving you rebuke, it's giving you direction, giving you clarity about how to be a good person. And the section Derech Chaim is not at all mysticism. It's far more down to earth. It's far more simple and direct and forward and available. And any person who's ever dabbled in the Shal marvels at the encyclopedic knowledge this man had. He's not talking about one part of Torah. He's playing with all the marbles, whether it's the Talmud, or it's the Jerusalem Talmud, or it's the Medrash, or it's the Zohar, or it's Kabbalah, or it's the Arizal, or it's Hebrew grammar, or Jewish. The few books we have from great rabbis on biology and anatomy. There's nothing in Torah literature which is not represented in the Sefer Shnei Luchos HaBrit. It's an incredible work. It's very easy to read, relatively speaking, of course. and it covers an enormous amount of territory. It really is a classic work. And many of the great Kabbalists who would follow him, who considered themselves directly or indirectly followers of the Arizal, of the Kabbalah of Rabbi Tzachor Ashkenazi, would lean heavily on the writings and the teachings of the Shal, both in the work Shal, in his Siddur, and so on, because he's so easy to read, he's so available and so generous and so forthcoming in his writings. But perhaps, when you talk about the Shal, the great Rabbi Shai Levi Horowitz, his contributions, and it so happens that he had ancestors who were also very holy. There's a sefer called Shefa Tal, which is a classic work of Kabbalah by one of his grandparents, also a great Kabbalist. But perhaps the greatest legacy we have from the Shal is his family name, Horowitz. Innumerable, literally uncountable numbers of great rabbis, great scholars, great mystics, great Hasidic rebbes of all stripes were direct descendants of the Shal. If your last name is Horowitz, and you are a Levi, you're very possibly a descendant of the Shal, and you belong to an incredibly illustrious family. You cannot possibly overstate the incredible number of giants of Torah and Kabbalah and Chassidus that have radiated from this great and holy man, Rabbi Shai Levi Horowitz.